There are a lot of you that don't know much about me, and how I came to be the third party with Hunting Purgatory, the investigation series.
So, I hit up Tanner. We were over at his place, and he went out for a bit, and I had some alone time with it myself, so I had turned off all the lights, started staring into it, scrying into it for about 20-30 minutes or so. And, I mean, later that night, you know me, dude, I don't really submit to all that stuff, but, I'm leaving his house, and I severely sprained my ankle walking down the stairs.
I've known Tanner for many, many years. I've been involved in a lot of things as far as paranormal investigation, but you could say that I was kind of born to do this. Most of my life, growing up, I lived on Indian burial ground in Northern California. I experienced many, many things around my neighborhood that remains unexplained to this day. There's a ton of history. If you want to look it up yourself, I'll leave some links below so you can kind of verify the area that I'm talking about. This is the first time I've gone on camera to explain what it is that is my major aversion towards things such as Ouija boards. When I was 3 or 4 years old, I moved from a historic area in San Jose, California to a place in South San Jose known as Campbell. It was just far enough away from my old house to have to change schools and find completely new friends, and in doing so, we kind of got into a lot of things that, kids get into. The 90s was a time where, a 6, 7, 8-year-old could kind of bounce around town with his friends and not really worry about it. We didn't have cell phones. It was a very come home before the street lights turn on kind of environment that we lived in. And as we got older, we got a little bit more freedom. Our parents trusted us a little bit more, and they trusted that we had good judgment not to get ourselves involved in negative situations. I didn't live in the best neighborhood. Very mixed socioeconomic group. There was your standard drug houses. There was people that parents were business professionals and entrepreneurs, and we kind of existed in this same neighborhood around each other where we all went to the same school, San Anselmo Elementary. And right up the street was Bernal Middle School. So around that was the Santa Teresa Mountains. It's what separates San Jose from Santa Cruz. And it's well known to be an area that was inhabited by Native Americans for many, many centuries before we arrived. When I started approaching my preteen years, it was not uncommon for me to skateboard off with my friends, go jump a light rail, and tell our parents we were at the park. We used to explore those mountains. We had a lot of areas like Dottie's Pond, and that was the site of a young girl who was being bullied by a couple other older girls who ended up getting pushed into the pond, and at the very bottom of it was nothing but what would be known as quicksand or really thick mud, and she was sucked in and she drowned. That area was fenced off for my entire youth. We used to go hang around there because it was a scary place to go where someone had passed away, and kids are interested in that kind of thing. But as I was growing up, I started experiencing a lot more things in my own home that were unexplained. I would see objects move in my own house. I would see things, especially in my kitchen area, be knocked over. Me and my sister would walk home from school and we'd see, a complete disarray, thinking to ourselves man, Dad must have been in a hurry to leave the house, or Mom must have been in a hurry to leave the house when she dropped us off to school and then just left us here. So when you're a kid, you don't think that deep on things like that. So as I grew older and I started hearing the lore about the area that I lived in, it became more and more obvious to me that I was experiencing something that I was being told didn't exist, sort of. Because when you're a kid, you're growing up, and before you're conditioned to believe, oh, ghosts don't exist and this doesn't happen and that's all make-believe. Before you're conditioned to do that, you're really seeing things through your own eyes, seeing things as they happen, being present in the experience of seeing something unknown happen. I remember an instance where there was a holiday party at my sister's middle school. The site of her school is a crazy place alone. There's a story that you can actually probably look up online still. There was a book in her library that actually told about it, of a Native American tribe that was slaughtered by settlers. They literally lived all around our area, the base of the Santa Teresa Mountains, and there was a curse placed on the land, allegedly. People still say that they see apparitions of Native Americans, specifically a young girl in full regalia, beads, headdress, everything, walking around the campus and the area around the campus. So one night we're at this holiday party. Ironically, it was a Halloween party. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was October 29th, 1999. And there was a bunch of games. There's bobbing for apples. There's like, there's prizes to be won, little toys, gifts, whatever. They have a cakewalk, you know, things like that. But there was a back gym section of my sister's school that they used for, like, you know, make a basket or throw the bean bags, knock the teeth out of the little smiling guy, and get a kazoo or some sort of noisemaker or something as a prize. And I remember this instance pretty vividly, that we were kind of all standing there. I was in line. I was like second or third in line to do the basketball game, and all of a sudden the lights start flickering, and then they shut off completely. And in the corner of the room, there's these two emergency doors. Those fly open, and I could see clear as day with the emergency lights that are outside that no one's holding them open. A gust of wind comes in, and like a horror movie, starts swirling in the middle of the room, and it starts picking up all sorts of things: popcorn, bags, trash, paper. And as it swirls for a couple seconds, it starts gusting towards the wall, and it goes out the other emergency exit door. And as soon as the gust of wind carries all that debris out, the lights turn back on. And all the parents are looking at each other going, ooh, crazy, scary, as if someone set it up. But in hindsight, even being a 9-year-old, I've always been a very mentally confident person. And what I know now is that that is something that, without a Hollywood budget, cannot be orchestrated at all. It was a paranormal experience for sure, and I can't let go of those type of memories in my mind. So those type of instances are what got me interested in the paranormal field in general. As time went on, I was a crazy young kid. I started getting interested in it. I mean, obviously, I was your standard, like, Goosebumps reading, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Nickelodeon kind of kid. But when I was getting into my preteens, my friends and I had developed this interest around the paranormal, and that was the time I had originally heard about Ouija boards. I remember telling my friends at school, one of which is now a Patreon subscriber to us, growing up, that I thought my house was haunted. I thought that there was activity going on there, and a lot of the kids at school would think, you know, I'm crazy, or, you know, I'm making this story up for attention, but I stayed adamant on it. I mean, I went to that school from 2nd grade till I was in 6th grade, and my story really never changed. I was telling people, like, and what was crazy is, like, a lot of them lived on the same ground that I lived on. They lived on this ground that was just completely embedded with Native American body parts and bones and artifacts and all sorts of stuff that might contain some sort of mystical energy. A friend of mine's older siblings actually had a Ouija board, and he had access to it, and he had mentioned to us, hey, my older brother has this Ouija board that he used to play with his friends, and he says he won't touch it anymore. He won't even let me play with it. And so for about 6 months, he teased about it and said, you know, we should do the Ouija board, we should do this. We're all ages, 11 to 13, 14 years old. Finally, one day it was dusk, and we were out in the hills of Santa Teresa Mountains, and we came across this old stable. I'm talking, the thing was about to fall. It was this old, dilapidated wood horse stable that was just a covering to keep the rain off of their animals. And it was about dusk when we started walking down the hill, and we heard the sound of hooves. And, you know, that's not uncommon for the area necessarily, because people do have horses up there, but it sounded like a lot of hooves. You start hearing this gallop sounding like multiple horses, and then we started hearing shrieks and cries, and, like, the only way I can describe it is it sounded like Native American warriors charging into battle. Like, I have no other way to put it. I really don't. And later that night, he was teasing, saying we should go back up there and we should do a Ouija board. We should do a Ouija board. And it was a Saturday night, so we decided that we were going to go ahead and do it. We told our parents that we were staying the night at each other's houses. Very common thing growing up. I'm sure a lot of you understand what I'm talking about. So that way we were kind of accounted for, and we took the Ouija board and a handful of candles. I'm talking like scented candles and stick candles and tiny little candles left over from Halloween for jack-o'-lanterns. And we took them into the middle of the canyon where the horse stable was. So the oldest of us was 13, and he had brought a lighter from home so he could go ahead and light the candles, and we had no idea what to expect from this. We just kind of like sat around in a circle and we started asking questions. We were getting up from the circle, sitting back down, we were taking our hands off and picking our noses, whatever the hell we were doing. There were 4 of us. 3 of us sat in the circle and participated, and the sister of one of my friends sat outside of it because she was too afraid to participate based on things she'd heard from her older siblings and things she'd seen on TV. And we decided that we were going to do our first ever Ouija board seance. So we sat there and we asked questions. Are you a Native American? Did you die here? Were you involved in any battles? And this went on for like 20-30 minutes. We were getting up out of the circle, coming back, like nothing official. We didn't know the rules of the board. The board was extremely old. I don't know if it came with instructions when he took it from his brother's closet or whatever, but it definitely wasn't present inside the box. So as we do the Ouija board, we're starting to all like get a little bit more scared, a little bit more on edge, and we decide to call it quits and blow the candles out. So this is where it gets really heavy, and this is where it becomes hard for me to talk about. And it's one of those things where every time I tell this story, I won't want to say that I start crying, but like it's almost like I can't control the water coming from my face. So I can't attribute exactly this event to it. It was just too close afterwards. It was too close afterwards for me not to think that it might have had something to do with it. Another friend that I was with, he was a year younger than me, and he was there participating in the Ouija board. I'm not going to say his name for privacy. The person that is watching this, there might be 1 or 2 people that knew me growing up that is watching this. They know exactly who I'm talking about. We left, and basically when we left and we went back to my house, he was quiet. He wasn't really his normal usual self, very bubbly, very active, very chattery kind of kid. He just seemed like something was off about him. This is the type of friend that I hung out with like every single day. His mom would take us to the skate park. We would go pretty much everywhere together. We would lie for each other to make sure that our bases were covered. Monday came around, and at school I was looking for him and I didn't see him. So I called his house and I asked his mom, and she said that he wasn't feeling well and that he's kind of been like quiet and like in his own room, and she doesn't know what happened. She asked me a bunch of questions with what had happened over the weekend, and like I obviously was scared. I wasn't going to tell her like, hey, we lied and said we were staying at night at each other's houses, and we took a Ouija board from so-and-so's older brother and we went and played with it on Indian burial ground in the middle of the canyon we weren't supposed to be at in the middle of the night. Again, this is one of those like really heavy situations because you have to understand the mental state someone's in, especially at that young of an age, to be able to do something like this. So a few days went by and I still hadn't had any contact with him. I'm already starting to feel it. I hadn't had any contact with him, and it was Tuesday, it was Wednesday, it was Thursday, it was Friday. I hadn't spoken at all. A couple of weeks go by, and we find out that he is just so profound to me. It's like this is a time in life where there should really be no stress. You're a kid, what could possibly be affecting you in that kind of way at that young of an age? Like, we didn't hear anything from his mom. I mean, rightfully so. Like, she's probably traumatized and extremely sad, as all of us were. But something intuitive inside of me, my intuition was saying that it had something to do with what we had done in the canyon that night. And for many, many years, I took a lot of responsibility for it. I thought I saw him as a person that looked up to me as a role model, and the older friend that we were with, he would look to us for like guidance and look up to us. And I think as an adult, I understand how much more powerful and profound that really is. What would cause you to do something like that seemingly out of nowhere is still beyond me. It's something I've wrestled with the majority of my life. it's not about doing these things and taking these risks and what's going to happen to you in the next few hours, or what's going to happen to you tomorrow or during this period of time that you're doing a Ouija board session. It's more about how it's going to affect you in a couple days, a week, a month, or maybe not affect you, maybe affect someone that you love. It's a risk as an adult I've been apprehensive to take, and I wish I had more foresight. I wish I had more foresight as a young person in regards to thinking these things are a game. So now those of you that have wondered know, and those of you that have called me scared or a pussy, understand where it's coming from. And also, I never get a chance to really convey how I feel about that, and I just want to say f*** you. You have no idea the experience that I have with this type of stuff, and you have no idea the effects it's had on me mentally and emotionally and the people that I love. My choice to get involved with this is purely based on the need for answers and closure for some of these things. So for those of you that are respectful and understand that a lot of these things we do are nothing to toy with, and this is a very, very serious thing to get involved with. Regardless of us editing it to make it an entertaining show, we go to the darkest and scariest, most active places that are known to man. You can look them up on Google. There's literature written about them. There's hundreds of years of people telling stories and testimonials of this negative effects these places have had, the entities they've experienced. Any of you who wish to follow in our footsteps, understand that you're opening yourself up to things that there may or may not be a remedy for. Anyway, that's my story.